Alrighty guys, so before I start putting all this together for the cross member, I'm just going to show you what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and what's going on with this cross member. So pretty much we've got the U channel that I cut here, so 150 wide, and then I cut it 26mm high from the bottom to the top lip, and then I've also cut this 4mm plate to suit the U channel. So pretty much once this plate goes on top, we'll have a overall 30mm height, so it should be sort of nice and slim profile, won't stick too much from underneath the chassis, and hopefully won't get caught up on too much stuff. So that's that. And then I also just put a little rust proof paint, but I'll have to grind this back where this bracing is. So I've also cut 4 bits of bracing here, and then 2 bits of our gearbox mounts that I've cut on a 40-degree angle to suit the angle of the gearbox mounts. So pretty much what I'm going to do is mark up where these are going to sit on the cross member, and then either side of the mount, what I'm going to do is weld this bracing in. So it's sort of going to sit somewhere like that, just to show you guys. So we'll weld these in, and then we'll put the plate on top. Now before I put the plate on top and weld it, I'll sort of mark where center is on top of this plate of the bracings, and then I'll just drill maybe 4 or 5 holes. So when we sit the plate on top, tack it, we'll have, you know, some holes here that we can just weld to the top bit of this bracing, just so it's holding on to something. So yeah, top plate will go on, and once the top plate's on, we can align and weld the mounts in. So the idea for these bracing bits is just to sort of take the weight of the gearbox a bit better, braced a bit better. So it'll be definitely plenty strong. It'll be a bit heavy, but it'll be really strong. So that's about it. So yeah, I'm just going to make a start on welding these up, and then go from there. Alrighty, so before I weld these braces in, I'll show you guys sort of how I've spaced it out and marked it all out. So pretty much overall width of the cross member is 1.35 m, so divide that by 2, and that's our center mark here. And then off that I've gone 95mm and then 170mm, and that's the outside of our gearbox mounts. So I've done that either side, and then off these I've gone 50mm either side for the bracing. So done that both sides, and then that's pretty much it. Just going to weld these in and then continue on from there. Alrighty, so all the bracing's been tacked in. Now I thought it'd be a good idea to practice some of my welds, because it had been a very long time, well, not a very long time, but quite a while since I've welded. So yeah, a couple of practice welds on this one here. Just added some steel on. I think this one here is probably the nicest weld out of all of them. But yeah, I just wanted to play around with the welder settings for a bit and make sure that that the settings are dialed in and right, and see if I've still got it. So yeah, gonna fully weld all these in and then keep going. Alrighty, so bracing's been all welded in. Welds are looking pretty damn good. So yeah, happy with it. Now all we got to do is just rust paint all this, and then we can move on to getting the top plate on top. So yeah. Alright, so just a bit of pre-weld prep before I weld these two together. I'll just show you guys what I've done. So I've just painted the inside just with some black rust-proof paint, just to preserve it a bit more, even though it's going to be sort of all enclosed, just for safety, I guess, just to preserve it a bit more. And then I've also done this for the bottom side of the top plate, and then I've also drilled 4 holes where all the bracing is going to sit, and then I've also chamfered the sides for the top plate and the U-channel, so I have a nice little gap to fill it with weld in there. But so pretty much when I chuck this plate on top, I'll show you guys. So yeah, as you can see, I'm just gonna sort of fill that with weld as well, just so it's got more stuff to hold on to. And then yeah, that nice 45 chamfer in there, fill that with weld, and then that's our cross member. Alrighty guys, so before I get into welding this, I'll show you sort of what's going on. So it's all clamped up. I've got a clamp either side holding down the top plate, and then I've got a clamp going over the top with a bit of steel plate either side, just to hold it sort of center. And then I've got one clamp pushing the cross member down just to hold it. And then so you can see here, if I run the straight edge across the member, either side pretty much here and there is nice and flat, and then towards the ends, both ends, you can see it, there's a bit of a gap, so it dips down a little bit, not too much, and then in the middle as well it dips down a bit. So yeah, hopefully all should go well, but the idea is to weld this all up sort of nice and evenly. So I'll start from each corner, weld opposites, and then make my way towards the center, and then hopefully overnight it'll cool down and maintain the shape that it's sort of at now, hopefully. So another thing I'll show you guys is so that's the bracing that we welded in, 4 bits of bracing, and then yeah, just drilled out 4 holes. So we'll also fill them up with weld, and yeah, hopefully that'll hold that plate a bit more, be a bit better braced. That's the idea anyway. So yeah, we're going to get into welding this. Alright guys, so it's the next day after finishing welding up the cross member, so I'll just let it sit overnight and cool off with it all being clamped up, just so nothing would warp, and it turned out pretty well. Yeah, so you can't really see on the camera, it looks pretty flat. The only thing is this middle bit dips down just a little bit, but other than that, it turned out really well. So yeah, welds turned out good. Happy with them. Looks like I got a nice amount of heat into it all. So yeah, pretty much almost at the finishing stage of this member. Also filled in the bits where we had our bracing. I'll just miss that little bit because I had the clamp in the way. So now we can sort of move on to getting the actual mounts on here and weld it up. But before we do that, actually I need to figure out where I'm going to drill the holes to access the nut from the bottom. So I'm just going to take the cross member underneath and set it up, show you guys how I'm going to set it up, and then we'll mark it all up and go from there. Alright guys, so now I've just set my line laser up center of where the cross member is going to be. So I'll just explain sort of how I've figured out center. So the main thing for this cross member was for the mounting holes to sort of align slash fit in the cross member, because we still need to weld in crush tubes into the cross member later on. So the crush tubes are 4mm thick, so pretty much what that means is we need a 4mm gap from where our bolt's gone through the cross member to sort of the inner wall of the cross member, if that makes sense. So we need a gap to pretty much fit the crush tube in. So how I've marked this out is pretty much I've described a line from these two center holes this way, and then the distance from here to here I've divided in half and then drawn a center line this way. So you'll pretty much have like a little center dot point there, and then I've done the exact same thing on the other side, same thing, and then I've just set my laser up to where those two lines cross over. So that's my center, sort of back to front, and then left to right. All I've done is I've just measured from one end of the chassis rail to the other, and then divided that by half, and then just adjusted it to get my half there. So now that we've set the laser up, all I need to do is mark center both ways on the cross member and then align it up with my line laser. So yeah. Alright, so I've just aligned the cross member with our laser. So as you can see there, just marked center both ways on the cross member and aligned it with where we set our laser to. So that's in position. What I've also done here is you can see the angle of where the thread comes down. I've just marked the angle coming down with the marker just by eye, it doesn't have to be spot on. And then I've also marked center of the thread here. So pretty much I can just grab a square edge and then just run that across through here, and then do the same on this bottom mark here, mark center, and that'll be our drill holes. So when we drill these two, hopefully should be able to nicely get the nut up in there. So, and I've also just done the same on the other side here, marked it with texter center. So now we're just going to drill those holes through and then get the member back under here with the actual gearbox mounts, tack them in, and then weld those up. Alright guys, so I didn't end up recording the last bits of making up the cross member, but it is done. I just finished it off yesterday by giving it a bit of paint. So I'm going to show you guys what it looks like now, and also explain what I've done to finish it off and get to this point. So yeah, let's get into it. So this is it, cross member done, welded up and painted. So pretty much last time I was recording, I had the cross member underneath the car and sent up both ways, centerways to the chassis, and also had my line laser under there. So from that point, all I done was set the actual mounts up with the gearbox under there and just aligned it up, tacked them in, welded them up, and then just marked out my mounting holes, drilled a hole, and then got some crush tube and welded all the crush tubes in, and that was pretty much it. Also just cut the bit of cross member that was sticking out past the chassis and bent up a little bit of plate and welded that on there either side, just sort of like a capping plate to stop any dirt and mud getting in there. But other than that, turned out pretty good. So yeah, cross member is done. Now we're going to move on to getting this flooring situation sorted. So yeah.